Hello, hello. All right, I think that transition was okay. All right, I think that transition was okay. All right. Hold on one second. I made one mistake in my setup, so I'll be 1 second before I'm ready to go. I thought I had the Twitch chat up, and I don't. My setup. So sorry, Dan, for the delay. All right. There it is. Okay. So, we are going to check out Vizzcode today. There's a number of things I want to do to look at everything involved in this project because there's quite a lot to it already. But the first thing that I think is worth taking a look at is actually the website because this is where if you go to vizzcode.com, you can try it out too, or buy the full version if you think it's for you. But the really cool part that I wanted to get to first is actually all of this like documentation and tutorials that that Dan Zaidan and Tiago Zaidan, I hope I said that right, but the two working on this project have created a lot of content right here, and I haven't looked at very much of it, so I'm not suggesting that it's quality or not. That's what we're going to figure out looking through a lot of it, but there's a ton of it here, and so at the very least there's a lot of work that is going into this already. There's introductions to like setting the system up. There's documentation on how things work, the libraries, and all of this stuff. It's laid out well enough that you'll be able to figure out what's here just as easily as I can. And yeah, it's just there's no way I'm going to get through all of it, but I kind of want to check out some of this stuff. So first of all, there's this setting up the program. That's something I did off stream. I wanted to make sure everything was going to work and run before I went live. And thankfully, Dan was nice enough to actually make some changes so they would run on Windows 7, since I still like to stream from my Windows 7 machine. So let's see. Transforming data. How do computers store data? So this looks like it's just an explanation of like basic computing stuff, which is awesome. Taking the time not just to explain how to program in your system, but programming in computers in general. In binary form or bits, a single value can be either on or off, true or false, 1 or 0. As you can imagine, not many interesting things can be stored in a single bit. Byte. Here's how it looks transformed in the binary format computers understand to decimal format we use. Yeah, so some of this is probably somewhat standard stuff, but it's all been custom written for Vizzcode. You can see that like here's a Vizzcode GIF integrated right in there. Certainly all of this is a lot of work. This node reserves a piece of memory or a locker according to the previous analogy that we can use to store data and operate on it. Yeah, this looks pretty cool. Alright, so we'll probably look at more of this as we're going to figure out what we want to do, but now I'd like to go ahead and pull up Vizzcode and take a look at the software itself. So another thing I want to point out is Vizzcode came with an installer that ran very painlessly. I think I can't tell for sure, but I think it's a custom installer. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the reason I say that is that the text, like I said, I ran this just briefly enough to not spoil it, but just long enough to make sure that like I could create a project and that things would work for me. And the thing I noticed on both of them that I already want to just point out is that I think one thing that the dev team should look into is iterating on their text rendering quality. I don't know what technique they're using right now, but I think you want to have a slightly sharper looking text than what you have here, and so you probably just want to spend some time thinking about what's going on here, because some of this text looks very pixely, and like the anti-aliasing looks weird. So just if you want to give a good impression to people who are looking at this to learn programming, that's one thing that you immediately I noticed made me, lower my expectations, which is not necessarily something you want to be a first impression. So just a note. But let's we don't need to spend too long on critique. Let's get into actually looking at what features it does have that are really cool. So I'm not sure which of these to do first. I saw there's a video on their website that explains what each of these is, and I kind of want to start with one of the ones that's below my level just to check out what's going on. So I'm going to start with Introduction to Programming, Hello World. We'll just say Start Tutorial, and I'll say Lesson 1. All right. So yeah, again, the text throughout the whole UI seems like it's all on the same engine. It's just a little bit off-putting to read, but let's move on from that. All right, so welcome to Vizzcode. We'll start a journey to program it into the programming world, a world that is different than any other, one where you'll be able to give life to your imagination. All right, this is cool. My scroll wheel doesn't work on this panel. Oh, now it does. Maybe I wasn't clicked onto it properly. Okay. All right, that was my fault. Unfortunately, my camera is going to obscure a little bit of the corner there. So if I pull this over here, some of these artifacts might be caused by the fact that I'm streaming or something. But so there's this next page button down here at the bottom. That's what I just realized is completely off screen with my camera. But besides that, we've also just noticed that there's something weird going on with the scroll bar when the width is not wide enough. But anyway, all right. The instructions that make up a program need to be organized inside procedures. Procedures are a set of instructions to be executed, improving the program's organization and readability. The main procedure is the first procedure to be executed in every program. In the first few parts of the tutorial, we are going to work with the main procedure. Start, drag off the mouse. All right, so this is how far I got before. I did one drag, so I know how this part works. And I want a new procedure, and I'm gonna name it. Until I give it a name, that remains locked, right? But if I start naming it, it doesn't show up until I've got a main. So I guess I need a main for this panel to unlock or something. Not sure what that was. But you can see that the name I put here shows up over there. So if I give it a different name, no, it doesn't work. I'm not sure why the name of main doesn't go to that. We'll figure that out as time goes on, I guess. So when you're editing this side gets locked. That's what we just saw. Visual programming area has an error. So this here is explaining a little bit about how Vizzcode works. The idea of Vizzcode, as it describes, is that you have these two different ways to edit your code, and you can see them changing side by side. So you're manipulating the same thing in two different perspectives, and when one of them is partially through an edit that leaves the program in a broken state, the other panel just can't be created, so it gets locked out until you undo the change. So if I delete that and type in exactly the code we just saw, we get the same thing on the left side as what I had gotten on when I created it by dragging and dropping the nodes. All right. Execution is the moment where the computer gives life to the instructions you wrote. Now you can click on compile on the topmost. All right, so if I hit compile, then it compiles. But if I run, what happens? So I just get an empty exited program window. Let's see, does it explain anything else here? No, so I guess this is all just going to be the main node. Okay, all right, so here's some new stuff. Can I move this? Yes, I can. That's cool. All right, so if I click and drag there, can I import a library? Yeah, and it links things back up. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I have imported print, and I have a main. I suppose the next thing is going to be to put the hello world in there. I like that I can mostly not read all the text and just scroll through quickly and figure out what to do. Like, that's nice design because there's a lot of text and so it's a lot of information, but it so far has been organized such that if I just skip the text and go to the next picture, I basically get the idea of what to do to follow along. And then if I want to go back as a learner and see more about what I skipped over later when I am ready to digest all of it, I can. But yeah, it's pretty well, like the organization of information so far has been pretty smart about when to put in a picture or something. All right, so if we compile again and run it, yeah, that just compiled it. So it's really cool. I put in 3 exclamation points because the example program didn't, and I wanted to see, I want to just poke at it and make sure it's really a programming language and not like a pre-scripted set of things, because so far I've followed exactly what it wanted me to do. But yeah, if I change stuff over here, it affected the program. If I recompile that way, is there a way to move my view around? Right click, okay. Yeah, so this is pretty much just a programming language. I don't know what language it is, or if it's custom or something, which would be pretty impressive. It's also got a built-in text editor, which is a lot of work. Even if it's a basic text editor, it's a lot of stuff going on here. All right. Yes, now I have my hello world. That's the first thing I do with every project I ever make. I make a hello world program so that I can be sure I've got everything working. So what I don't know is how do I exit? Let me just peek. I have a thing here. Now there's nothing behind my card this time. I don't know how, do I hit escape? I don't know how I go back and do one of the other options. Save, we got a Vizzcode. That pulled me back to here. I don't see a way to get out of this state. Dan, is there a way to get out of to go back to the menu once I get to this point? If not, I can just close and restart, obviously, but it'd be cool. It'd be cool if there was a button. I just am not seeing it. All right. So that's not done yet. This is still a work in progress project, which is one of the reasons I wanted to check it out, because that means it's at a time where there's actually useful, interesting things to talk about as we're looking at it. So that was Introduction to Programming Hello World. Let's just, plow through a couple more, maybe one more, and see what this one's like. Lesson 2, create new project. Okay, so let's see, what does the user have to say? Second part of our tutorial. Now that you know how to print, messages to the user's screen, it's time to learn how to read a user's message, or how we say in the programming world, read the user's input data. I like that. Trying to avoid jargon, but then also introduce it. Makes sense. Just ideas. I'm just going to throw out some ideas as they come. Because there's a lot of text on the screen to begin with, I think the readability of the text would go way up with a little bit more work on the font rendering, as we've already discussed. But also a little bit of extra typography to like sort of, you know, like if you ever read a textbook, they have like in bold or like in big bold blue words or red words or something, like keywords for the lesson, so that you like know like, oh, that's something I need to learn. You maybe that's something to try here, because you're kind of writing this like a textbook, except it's a little bit less formatted than that. But maybe, I don't know, just a thought. You guys have already done a great job, so I'll let you continue to think about how to do that kind of stuff. As always, if you need any help during the tutorial, you can just click the help button. I haven't even done that, have I? So the help button brings me right to the website, which does have some of these more, wow, look at the website has a lot of information. Built right in with the like links and highlighting and things. So you do kind of have some of the stuff I'm saying on the website already. The goal of reading the user's input data is to have an interaction with the user. In this tutorial, we'll develop a program to register data. Imagine that you are organizing a tournament of your favorite esport. You need a program for the competitors to register their information. Okay, so esport, competitors registering their information. To simplify this tutorial, we'll make a program that is able to register only one competitor, and that will simply print the registered information on the user's screen. Great, classic. Therefore, in this tutorial, you'll learn how to use the scan command. That must be imported just like the print command. The scan command will be responsible to read the data written by the user and store it in a variable. What is a variable? All right, so are we gonna also describe what a variable is right now? All right, I guess this is just the intro and give me it's a lot of information in text, and like I said, I can skip it and get right to the images. So I feel like that's my instinct, is that I want to do that more often. So let's just see, we want to do an import. I like that you have kind of a filtered list there, very four-coder lister. I approve. Main. So if I type in main, it goes straight to new procedure. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's a smart like design so that you can shortcut an extra layer of the list. Into it. Once we have imported the library and created the main procedure, we can start creating the instructions for the computer to execute. The first step is to create a variable that will store the data that represents the name. To create the variable, we need to drag off a new node from the pin execute. By the way, do you guys see my cursor flashing, or is that just me? I think it's a stream setting, so because it's happening on all of my windows. But it just is bugging me enough that I wanted to ask. All right, after we create the variable, we can change its name as shown on the images below. All right, so we're gonna do this. Yeah, so once again, the images really show me what I need to do to follow along. The text is there for the learning. Maybe the text is less dry if you already know it's coming too. I'm not trying to call it dry, I'm just saying I find when I'm reading, I'm like, why am I bothering to read this? But probably just because I already know what I'm doing anyway. Still, I really appreciate that I can skip to the image without getting like desynced. So that put name 0 there. This is such a cool system that you built a language. Dan said this was a custom language, that you built your own custom language that like, you must have a full-blown compiler running, right? If I do, yeah, that just worked. Do you have like types, I wonder? Is this a typed language? Do you have like float? Look at, oh, you do have types. Oh my goodness. This is really, really neat. So if I go string, so when I went string, it got rid of my text field. I thought it would be so cool if it turned into the string 100, because I already had 100 in my text field. And furthermore, I'm not entirely sure why my string field here needs quotes. I get why it needs quotes in the textual language, but over here it seems like you could just escape a string for me. That'd be like the thing I would expect a visual programming system to do. Now, maybe because it's a learning system, you want them to learn how escape strings work, but as a feature that would make more sense to a user who doesn't know how programming works, which is kind of the point, you'd think that this would be the string 100 and not that. Okay? Just a thought. But still, I really like the fact that there are types. That's good. Okay, I got a little off track there. I'm going to keep going farther and farther off the tutorials as we go to see how things work. All right, so we've got name and we got foo. Oh, look at you're gonna teach me how to change name into a string anyway, aren't you? Of course you are, because we're doing an input system. So let's see, how do I get rid of a node that I'm done with? No, I wanna delete the node. I right click it, it does that. If I do that, it says var. I don't know what these are. Can I? No. I'm not sure that there's a delete or I'm not sure that there's any way for me to get rid of the node visually right now. Because if I highlight like that and hit delete, oh, that time it worked. I'm not sure what that was. If that was a bug that I hit or oh, so it right now thinks I'm editing the text field, and now if I hit delete, it works. I see. So it's not really clear when you're editing the text field versus when you've just selected the node, but if you've only selected the node, the delete does that. But when you're in the text field, I assume the text field consumes the delete. Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Let's see. Next. Print. Please register for the Vizzcode Extreme Tournament. There we go. All right. So is there any way to resize this? Because like now I can't read the text in here at all. So it might be a little more, I think what I would expect to happen is that either the node grows with the size of the string to a certain point, and then like, you know, you can either like hover it and see the whole string, or you can resize the node, but all I seem to be able to do is move it around. It's not that big a deal because I can read it over here, but that'd be a cool thing to be able to do. First pin of the node set is designated for the variable that will be set and pin below it. Alright, so we're getting into something a little more intricate here. So here's how you set a variable. Let's see how this goes. So this is set, and now set is a very overloaded term. So I assume what we're talking about is set as in setting the variable to a certain value, not set as in like set of things. So now I need to tell it what variable. It's giving me the option to use, I see, so I can use a name, I can use any of these operators. Why can I use, I guess it's an expression, right? It's just having me fill in an expression. So it isn't like filtering to only L values or something. So let's do this scan, and scan wants me to put in something like this, right? It tells it what to do, and I need to make that like a string. There we go. That's how I want my field to look. All right. So I want to try something here. If I said I want to edit this thing, or this thing here, I don't even know what this does. parameters. Yeah, there's stuff here that I don't know anything about. Let's see, I can select that and delete it. If I go like this and say, give me modulo, that works. And then you ask for 2 more inputs, name, and can I do like a literal, like 100? It looks like I'm not able to actually do literals or something. So I suppose I can do name again. But since this won't compile, it won't generate the name, the expression as I just created it over here. Let me link this back up to this. And now it unlocks again. All right, so yeah, so this is basically like a grammar aware. So Dan says I can. Dan says I can type a literal into the text field directly. Oh, are you saying I can type it in right here? So if I said name and then got rid of this and said 100, well, that won't compile because it's a string. I see. So this can just be a text field too. I see. Well, maybe I'm skipping ahead and that's why I didn't know that. Can I do this? Oh, you can. So this is like completely intermixable. You can, at any point, use the visual blocks or just type an expression into the text field, then it'll parse that expression. That's very slick. I like that. So, all right, I'm going to sequence break here and reorganize the code a little bit to see, can I do, whoops, not that, I want U to lead into U, and I want this text field here up here. All right, and then we can delete these. So now I never had to use the set at all, and that does in fact compile, so you can do stuff like this. Very cool. That's very cool. It's a little confusing, like, it's partly because my cursor is flashing, so I'm like, wait, is my cursor an I-bar or a movable thing right now? But like, the area where you can switch to text field and the area where you can drag, because like, your intuition about how a window works is that the top part is click and draggable, but it's not. Okay, what's next? Okay, so let's do another one. Surname. That doesn't create a variable. I keep wanting to do that to create a variable, but that doesn't work. Surname. Scan surname. That's so cool. Yep, I did a sequence break. This was the one that does it without setting. It just directly connects that into the initializer. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. The right value is to print the value of the variables on the screen. The logic to use to print a variable is the same for printing a message you typed yourself. The difference is that you will connect a node with the variable instead of writing the message. All right, so now we're going to start using the print to put this all out there. So welcome to Vizzcode, and then print again the name, and this is once again a very, I think, very good decision to not try to do a complicated like multi-variable, multi-parameter print thing, but to just keep it nice and simple for now. Scratch, which I've played with before, has the ability to like take a node and then continuously extend it in like confusing ways that make it's closer to what programming languages offer on average in terms of like the ability to define new structures, but it makes the visual node like just looking at it, it becomes so much more complicated to even understand like, oh, these pieces fit together because I set up this meta piece that defines this shape, and so now that's why it has all these parameters or whatever. This is just like keeping it simple. I think that's the right call for a learning tool, especially. With that said, it would be kind of cool if there was a smarter layout for the print nodes when I'm doing something like this. I'm not sure what I would recommend. It's just, you know, I guess maybe like snapping or something. I don't know, just so that it doesn't feel like I have to organize these manually a lot as they get complicated. All right, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and say let's sequence break again and run our program. Wow. I know that it's not like a sophisticated program that we made, but I'm still super impressed that it works like exactly the way you would want it to. This stuff takes a lot of work. Rearrange nodes. Oh, I didn't even look. Rearrange nodes. Oh, look at that. Look at that. So I guess, yeah, I would say that the rearrange nodes spread my prints out a lot more than I would want them to be, because they're all part of basically printing the same line, and so even though you don't have multiple variables, you could kind of make it look like a cross between having multiple variables and not having multiple variables if they stacked real close when I did that. Anyway, or multiple parameters, I mean. But it doesn't really matter. I'm just nitpicking for like things. This is already so cool. I'm just looking for ways to give feedback that help you along, making it that much cooler. But rearrange nodes is definitely a good thing to have. Yeah, I missed that before. All right, so let's see. So the next thing it's going to do is show us how to get an integer. I see. So you have a scan int type. That again makes sense. Not trying to be overly fancy. So we want a new variable called age. It does a scan int. So I understand now why the strings require quotes in the text boxes. It's because you're treating the text box as a full expression, like a fully parsable expression. So you need to be able to parse what's in there in order to plop it over here. That's why. Yeah, I get that concept. I'm torn now because it would be very cool to live in a world where you didn't need escape sequences to make strings work. So a string text box that just literally took the string as is without escapes would be so cool to have as a visual programming feature. But since this is more of an educational thing where you're trying to do that expression text box replaceability thing, that I'm not so sure if I would recommend anymore. I'm torn because it would still be cool. Anyway. Alright, so I'm going to play with stuff that's not in the tutorial anymore. We're going off script. We're going to start experimenting now, because I think I've got my bearings well enough for how the basics work. The tutorial did a pretty good job of setting me up to learn the basics of how, like, it's partly because I already know programming, right? But still, like, I figured out how the text box expression thing works now. So as someone who's familiar with programming, I'm comfortable using this. I could easily help someone else learn programming using this as a tool. Because it fits so close to with what I already know, I'm not going to be surprised by much of what's happening here. So let's take a look. If I go off script for a little bit, what happens? So what I want to do is say, can I check, I want to make age ranges, right? So we're going to say the tournament is divided into an less than sign. Yeah, so if 8 is less than, or if 7 is less than the age, I need an AND node. Can I do that? And you just, yeah, you just, wow. That's so slick that it like corrects like that. Well done. And age is less than 13. So if that's the case, then true condition, yep, I know how this works. So true condition, print, you are in the 8 to 12 bracket. All right, can I rearrange this to get myself more space? No, I can't. All right. All right, here we need another if. Oops, I don't need that. What I need is this to go here. I'm going to make a chain of ifs here. All right. All right. See if it does parenthesis expression stuff. I think it does because we can see it over there already. So let's see. If we are less than 12 and all right, if we're, so 13 to 17 is my condition, true. All right, print you, oh, this isn't right. That's not right. I wanted the true condition. Print, there we go, okay. I must have misclicked or something. You are in the 13 to 17 bracket. All right. If that doesn't happen, then, all right, let's push this a little more. So what I haven't done yet is try less than or equal to age, and age is less than or equal to, so if you're 18 to 24, so wait, is that a wider bracket than the other ones? I don't want them to, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, it's too big. There we go. There we go. You, oops, gotta use quotes, you are in the 18 to 22 bracket. Alright, if not, then, alright, almost done screwing around now. Can I just type the whole thing right here? Would that work? No, okay. You are in the 23 plus bracket. There we go. All right, so let's rearrange my nodes, see how my program looks with all the nodes spilled out. Wow, look at this. So it automatically noticed that the age got used twice in this expression tree and only used one node for it. That's pretty slick. That's pretty slick. All right. This looks funny. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but you know, not the way I would want a beginner to learn to type brackets. Printing code can be pretty hard. There's all kinds of reasons why that might be happening. But anyways, mostly this is awesome. Let's take a look at how this goes now. All right. Okay, so all of the conditions were evaluated correctly for that situation. Ah, right. So I have a bug in my program. There we go, thank you. I am watching the chat. I'm just not going to respond to most stuff until we get to the end of an hour of checking this out, because I want to keep the attention on this for the hour. Okay, so I want to run one more time. I want to run one more time and try pretending that it's 10 years ago and I'm just starting out learning programming. I've only been programming in GameMaker for a couple years. 13, okay. So it looks like the conditions probably, I can assume, I haven't tested them extensively, but we just evaluated all of them correctly in this case, and then 4 of them correctly in this case. It looks like they probably work, right? So that's, I mean, I didn't doubt that they would work. It's just really cool to see them working. Yeah. Okay, all right. What's next? All right, so I think that's enough for that tutorial. All right, we gotta close Vizzcode. Yes, save changes. Close. Do you want to save before exiting? Yes. I guess setting yes doesn't automatically save. Okay. All right, let's try something better, bigger. Okay. Invaders. Okay. So the name of my project doesn't show up anywhere on the screen. That's kind of strange, right? It would be cool if my project name was right here or something. I could see invaders. Okay. All right. Yes, good. In this tutorial, I will introduce you to game development, showing all the basics so you can program your own video games. By the end of the tutorial, you will have created a shoot-'em-up spaceship game, and hopefully you will be able to apply what you learn in other games too. If you get stuck along the way, or just want to know more about each step, you can click the Help button in the tutorial panel header. You will be redirected to the Vizzcode documentation. Yeah, we know that. All right, next page. All right, games are highly interactive real-time software. This means the player will constantly send input to the game via mouse and keyboard, gamepad, touchscreen, or other devices. And the game must read that input and simulate the game world accordingly. Then it must display the game world to the user and do that all over again. Yes. All right. Like the name suggests, it's a loop that runs for as long as the game is running. Display frame 1564, 1565. All right, cool. Game loop makes sense. Oh, all right, so we're going to import game engine. So since you have built-in libraries, a lister right here of the libraries would be cool. Again, I get that this is an expression text field, but this is a little different, right? Like this one you could definitely be doing a little bit more to give me an idea of all the libraries as I'm typing, right? Did I screw that up? Ah, there's no space. See, perfect example. I still screwed it up. Why is it not? Oh, it won't. Right. So it won't unlock the panel if there's no main. I do like that the compilation error shows. I don't think I've actually looked at a compilation error. All right, give me main. There we go. There we go. All right, now do you compile? Cool. So the requirement that it compiles to create the text on the right-hand side, is that fully necessary? Couldn't you just do it if it's syntactically correct? Because that's what I was expecting. I guess it might be a little bit more of a pain to check, have two different levels of checking to do all that, but I feel like that was just a moment of friction that I don't necessarily feel like is intuitive why it happens. At least for me, like, probably for a beginner, starting without main doesn't make any sense, but I'm very used to writing code that doesn't have a main involved, you know? So that was a little confusing for a minute there. Main procedure. All right, so we're gonna make a while loop. Wow, so when I import, now I have all this stuff in my context menu that I can activate. So much stuff. There's so much stuff here. If I put button is down, we're not going to do that. We're going to stick to the script for a minute because I don't actually know how the library works, but I just want to see if, like, oh yeah, it automatically shows the parameters to the function with their name as labels and then the text fields for filling them in. It's so cool. It'd be cool if it also showed the type. That feels like something that would be a beneficial addition. Are there no structs in this system, by the way? Yeah, it looks like there's no data structures. I'm curious about that. How would you even do very much without data structures? Probably an incomplete portion, right? You're going to add structs, Dan? Is that a part of the plan? All right. Yes, give me a while loop. All right, while the game is running, yeah, I'm sure it's tough. It's programming language is a big project. Cool that that's part of the plan, though. With structs, this would basically be C, right? There's not much left. From what I've seen, there's not much left here that's missing. Pointers. I don't know if you have pointers. That might be something that's also missing. Arrays. Like a type system is definitely, like a full type system is definitely the thing that would make this just equivalent to C, right? I don't know if I can define functions either, can I? I guess, yeah, I'm defining mains. Yeah, you can define functions. It's already... coming along. Okay, so what does the tutorial tell me to do? I'm following the tutorial this time. Okay, the tutorial tells me not to build another node and to run my game. Alright, here's my game. Alright. Several images and sounds for you to use in the game tutorial. To download it, follow this link. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Let's put this over here. Bloop. Extract. Bloop. Alright, so you got the license file with all of the credits for these assets. I'll show that on screen real quick since it's about to show up in my video too. Alright. And let's see. Yeah. So we have here some WAV files, some PNG files. Looks like all the things we'll need to do a little asteroids programming. Yep. Cool. Alright, so I need to put that inside my project folder, so give me a second to do that. Where did that go? It's got to be in Vizzcode, which is installed around here somewhere. Where's the default path, Dan, for the Vizzcode projects? Oh, I think I found it. Here it is. Here it is. All right. There we go. So those assets are in my documents now. Next page. Alright, so let's see, programming the player's ship. Let's see what we're going to do here. I wonder how long is this tutorial? It's not that long, so it doesn't take that long to get some basics up and running. Let's see what we got to do. So we're going to draw a bitmap. We don't load the bitmap first. Are we loading it every time? Or does it cache this somehow? That'd be pretty impressive, actually, if it like the compiler was looking at what nodes it sees and going, this is a draw bitmap call, so we're gonna cache that. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. So this is kind of like a function call with compile time and runtime components, isn't it? Like, do you at compile time see the draw bitmap is coming and create a cache slot for it, or do you hash the string the first time you see it? I see. Well, either way, it's good call. So, is this telling me you have optional parameters? So if I go 120, you fill in that this is the size equals. All right, so I've been at this for 1 hour. I'm going to keep playing with the game, but I will now also start Q&A. So anyone who's hanging out who wants to ask questions, who wants to ask Dan questions or me questions, or who wants me to try things, I will begin interacting with the chat now. So if you're hanging out and you're seeing stuff, give it a shot. Tell me what you want to talk about. Okay, so let's see, this draw bitmap here is going to put this at size 120. All right, I want to see it. Do I think this will be valuable for new programmers? So I haven't seen enough of it yet to be sure. What I do think I could say is it would definitely be better than like trying to learn C, or if I had learned programming starting from this, I think I would have, instead of GameMaker, which is what I learned from, I think I might have learned C sooner. It also seems to me like if I was tasked with teaching programming, this is the best thing I've ever seen that I would probably pick. If some of the, like, if the font, like literally the text rendering, if it looked better, I would pick it. It's hard to get anyone to invest in using a tool if the appearance of it is a little bit off-putting, which is how I interpret this right now. But I think that this would be my preferred way to teach someone C-like programming who had never learned programming before. Of all the things I've tried, for sure. Like, I'd pick this over Scratch. I'd pick this over GameMaker. I'm trying to think if I've done any other super beginner type stuff. I think that covers the stuff I've tried, but I think that this is probably better. The built-in tutorials is awesome. The having the text and the visual stuff side by side is so awesome. Really smart. It's so close to C that I almost wanted to see if there could be like a C tab someday. Not that you would parse that, but just to show you if this was in C what it would look like. But that's kind of ambitious, I know. But like, it's so close to just being a C programming environment with a language different from C and this whole awesome addition. Anyway, that's my like thoughts about if it would be good for learning. Kosin Wool says, can you take multiple lines from global scope in the UI? That's a good question. Let's try that. Yeah, okay. All right. Variable. Okay, right. So that just, anytime you do that, it just strings them together. I guess the logic behind this is that it's all going into one program over here. So you don't really have a concept of like multiple files in this system, right? I can't write a program with more global starts and give each one a name or something right now. See, there you go. A way to like go from learning the Vizzcode to then learning C would just be having a C tab right here that you can't edit. You like look at it and it's like, this is not editable, but this is what the C code would look like. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the way that this is set up, it would make the most sense to me if you couldn't drag multiple things off of this, but you could have multiple of these, or if there were like tabs and like maybe they run along the top here, and when I switch one of them, it switches both the text view and the layout view, something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing to give the ideas, but right now it is limited to one file. That's the situation, to answer your question. Where do stuff I print go? I don't know what you mean. Did you miss the part where printing was going to the terminal earlier? The Burke is real. I'm not sure what exactly you're asking. I saw that earlier, but maybe you missed it. Okay. The BMXer asks, what do you think the visual part of the programming language brings to a new user? So there's a couple of things. One, I've heard a lot of people say that now I have to point out that by the time I was learning C, I had already learned GameMaker script, and GameMaker script got me used to the idea of balancing braces and other syntactical things like that. And GameMaker script is a thing that you can do side by side with a very different style of drag and drop programming. So I already knew the syntax stuff, and I never really struggled with the syntax part of C that I had already become familiar with, like brace balancing, square brackets for arrays, that kind of thing. What I've heard, though, is that that's one thing that a lot of beginners struggle with, and why some people prefer to teach languages like Python that have supposedly less confusing syntax to a beginner, or at least less things to manage in their syntax. It's also why they prefer things like Scratch that make it impossible to make a syntax error, and instead the frustration won't be that you're not sure why the syntax error is wrong, but that you don't know how to like manipulate the UI to make the structure that you want, or you don't know what structure would solve your problem, which are slightly different types of problems and maybe easier for a beginner to get their head around. I don't know. The other thing that I think everyone overlooks about these systems is, I'll show you right here, it's the most valuable thing to me in any of them. It's this. So you can get this from like an IDE too, like the dot fill in, but having it visually is just different because it's now a first-class citizen. It's not like you're still typing in text and trying to figure out how you're supposed to type in the text to make this happen. It's just like I didn't have to know to like do like game engine : to get my IDE to do this. I just have this list of options now. This is super valuable for beginners because it makes not knowing what's even possible is the first thing someone has to confront when they don't know how things work. And having this here is just like, here's the list of things that are possible, and you can just sort of browse, like, does that do it? You can. This is also better than an IDE because it's got like a better, like it's stably, the menu is just up here now. So I can do like, okay, hide cursor is not what I want. How do I hide the screen? Clear screen, that's what I need, right? Like, that is a cool feature to have very easy to access for a beginner, I think. I do think that there's still some trouble a beginner has to go through to like learn algorithmic thinking, to like understand that like, oh, this is why there's a compilation error, and there's a few things because this is C like that will be compilation errors that are confusing, like the fact that main has to be called main to be an entry point is just a weird artifact of C that I don't know how you fix necessarily, except getting rid of the idea of the. So one thing that like scripting languages do is that your code just sits at the global scope, and code of the global scope essentially forms your main. That could be a thing. So let's see. I don't want this node. Yeah, I haven't actually like exercised this to try to make errors happen. So let's do something here. Can I turn off the contextual filter and put a while loop in? Yeah, so I just tried to connect a while loop to that and nothing happened. So what if can I make a compilation error? I have to think about this for a little bit. Maybe random int in range. Will that, I don't think it'll let me connect mismatching types, which is interesting, but now I'm sort of as a user going like, wait, why? Why can't I connect these? There's no error message now, right? So you have good error messages, but where's my error message when I do this? What I should get is like, oh, it says if I were to connect that, here's the error message you would get. You know, because right now it's just sort of mysteriously not possible to connect this. And float in range. So there's also no way to change a node, which is a little bit just of a UI problem, I think. Yeah, so those let me connect. So there's a fundamentally difficult thing about programming, which is that solving a problem with programming, we don't really know how to make it intuitive. Like it doesn't matter what presentation you give somebody who doesn't know what algorithms are like. If you don't know algorithms, you just can't really wrap your head around them until you get good at algorithms. Like, I don't know of a way in any system ever that has ever made it easy to go, oh, this implements a sort, without having some concept of what algorithms are and how they could be constructed, sort of thing. I think that what this helps with is more the like not getting hung up on syntax part, so that you are directly contending with that problem, which I don't think anyone knows how to make easy. If anyone had a visual programming system that made it really easy to understand what your algorithms do at a glance, that would imply a much deeper like computer science breakthrough than just an educational programming language, I think. I guess that's my take on that. On the other hand, it might also be true that there are some things that you could do if you started thinking creatively about it that would make it a little more intuitive at a glance what's going on here. So like the sort of blueprint style of visual programming leads to like the chaos over time. The Scratch method has the nice feature that it like interlocks, so the things you're looking at lay out in a slightly more linear way. Like they fit together. You see how not only they like the expression fits inside the expression slot, which is cool, but also like it has the same flow as the code. I don't actually know if that helps you understand what you're looking at any more than this does, though. Like, maybe what would really help is a debugger, right? If I could, say, start running and it, like, walked through each node and showed me the implication of every node as I was going, one step at a time, that might make a huge difference in your ability to understand what's going on, right? You come here to the while node, it then extends the selection to this thing, and then it says, oh, is it true, comes back, then goes down to here, right? That would be like a next level of visual programming for education, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, I've just chatted about this question for a while now. Is there anything else that I have ignored since then? I think it just looks like JAI because the syntax for JAI is not owned by anybody, and it's a really good syntax. It's just nice and easy to parse. So if the free version doesn't generate the exe, does it still run the code? Like, does it simulate or something? Speaking of active selection, oh, you can hold shift and select multiple nodes. So I'm curious to see, yeah, there are some pretty cool things in here already. I think if you want it to be a little bit more like super usable interface stuff, there's a lot you would do on this side to like making groups and having tabs for different files / spaces, or like instead of having a global scope look like this, you could say, like, I don't know, it's tough because this wants to be educational for someone learning something like C style programming. So you are trying to transition them to seeing things as a file with an order. But the ideal like programming interface would probably be more like each of these is their own thing, and the order is solved by the system. But that's a very different, and that's kind of a different goal than what this has in a certain way. Oh, that's cool. Dan says that the way the free version works without generating the exe file is that the tiny C compiler can compile and execute, but without actually putting out the exe file, which is a neat feature. I didn't know that was a thing. All right, I said I wanted to try to generate an error, but this didn't work. So instead what I need to do is come over here and say x equals 0. Can that compile? Unknown. Oh, it's position x. Okay, so I just found one. In line 5, character 56. So that's cool. It has the jump to error. That jump to error doesn't help as much, but it is cool that you have both of them. I don't know if like are the boxes overlapping each other, or is it like highlighting this one because it's more important and this one because it's less important. One thing that you could do if we start having like lots and lots of errors, I don't know if your compiler does multiple errors. Let's see. It just does one at a time. Okay. Then maybe my suggestion wouldn't matter as much. It's probably a good call. Lots of errors could be intimidating. Even with that though, it might be cool to do something. This is something I've been thinking about for compiler errors, is just making them more user-friendly in general. Is if you're gonna have additional notes, make this like an expandable section so that you can have like lots of notes that go into detail about what's going wrong. So you just have a nice and simple error that like if you already know what that error means, you can look at that and go, oh, I meant position X, right? It's so cool that it's automatic too. That means you're like reattempting to parse every single frame or every single input or something, right? Every time the file changes. That's really hardcore. So anyway, if you have a most important line, then what you can do is say everything else is like in a collapsed section, so you can open it and put a lot of details in there. Yeah, so the fact that you're rebuilding on every input is like, that's like some editor of the future stuff right there. That's how things should converge to always keep your program built. So you're not quite compiling every time, but if you know it can compile, then I wonder, if I do this, yeah, so until I hit compile, the run doesn't actually get changed, even though you know that it could have compiled. Just I find maybe a strange choice. Not sure what I think about that. I like the concept of teaching someone what compiling means and that it's like a part of the workflow. On the other hand, like a slick visual programming system, especially one that can already tell if something parses with every input, would not require that. I think, yeah, most of these things that I'm picking out that are like the quotes in a text field or the compile or not compile come down to whether or not you're teaching someone to program something like C or whether you're trying to make a really slick environment. And I think you're trying to make something more geared towards teaching C-like programming. So it makes sense to actually keep in the artifacts of that environment, even though you could get rid of them. All right, well, I'm not sure that there are any more questions coming in, and I've experimented. There's plenty more to check out about how the game engines part works. I didn't get very far in that. The fact that you have like rendering in there, I kind of get where this is going to go. We're going to have, so it looks like create object is going to be, yeah, this is sort of game maker like. So instead of structs, you're going to have like IDs for things, and then use those to access other things. So it gets a little more runtimey, but you're still compiling it, which is pretty cool. I feel like I would love to see it have structs, and that's about like structs in a type system, right? I guess pointers are a hard thing to teach. And so having help with the pointers would be pretty valuable. But that's it for the video, because I don't think I'm seeing any more, or for the stream, because I'm not seeing any more questions come in. I'm not going to spend all day just chatting. I'll talk with you more, Dan, on Discord if you want to chat about anything else. And thanks for anyone who came to check this out. Thanks, Dan, for giving me permission to check this out on stream. It's really neat. I hope you keep working on it. And I will see everyone around on the internet. Later.